most people suck at relationships, and it's completely their fault. And when you look at all of the research around relationships, all of the like studies that have been done, etc., there's this researcher named Gottman, Gottman, I believe is how it's spelled. He, has researched this for his entire life, his entire career. A lot of stuff comes down to limiting resentment, and the way you limit resentment is through communication and alignment. What is a beautiful way to do that we've all learned, especially if you're listening to this podcast? All the stuff we learn in business, right? And what I get a lot of crap for when I talk about this is I took many of the things I learned in trying to develop to be a decent, if not a good manager, and I applied it to my marriage. Now, there isn't a power dynamic and all this other stuff. Everyone who's like clutching their pearls listening to this, I can kind of calm those particular nerves. But what ends up happening is like my wife and I have weekly one-on-ones. Like, why do we have one-on-ones? Well, there's so much stuff that goes on during the week. Oftentimes you can be living with your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and you don't actually have any conversations, or you don't push anything forward for maybe a couple of weeks because you're both busy, you're just watching some Netflix, you're getting dinner, whatever it is. But for us, it was like my wife would ask me to do things right before I went to bed, which is the worst time to ask me. And I would commit to those, which makes this ultimately my fault. But then I would forget about it, right? Well, now it's like throw those into the one-on-one, because now it's like, oh, I need to get all this done. Okay, I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to go figure it out, right? But I've just limited resentment because she's not going to resent me when I don't do it, because I'm going to remember to do it at this particular point. But the other thing, and this is the thing that you're getting at, that most people mess up is, what is the shared vision for your marriage or your relationship? And it doesn't need to be like world domination and revenue and all this other stuff, obviously, that you do get into in the business world. But like, what's important to you? What do you want out of life? And having those conversations when you're dating, like on my third date with my wife, I had gotten out of a long relationship that was just terrible for a lot of reasons, my fault, her fault, etc. My third date, I was like, listen, this is what's important to me. Like, this is going to change. This is not going to change. Like, if you're on board with that, fantastic. Let's keep going. If you're not, let's not waste each other's time, right? And it was said more sweetly and less cool than I'm giving off right now.
What were some of those boundaries?
High integrity, no lying, none. No white lies, no even smells of white lies. No like, oh, I'm going to go get coffee here and you go somewhere else. Like, just none of that. Because that, for me, I'm someone who trust is very difficult, incredibly insecure. And so it doesn't manifest well within me. Like, because it's not like, oh, is she like hooking up with someone else or something like that. It's more of like, it's more of a deeper, insidious thing. Like, if I can't trust you, I'm not going to be your partner. I'm going to be someone who just lives with you, right? And so, like, that's where a lot of like arguments that we might have is like something might happen, or I said, hey, we agreed to go do it this way, and then she doesn't. Like, that's one of my things. One of the other boundaries was around, or the things that I talk about is like constant communication. Like, no like going to bed unhappy, no going to bed angry, nothing like that. Like, if something bothers you, like, say it, let's talk about it. Now, you might not understand it, so let's like have a good environment where we can talk through it, but none of this like 2 weeks ago you did this thing, nothing like that. Basically limiting resentment as much as humanly possible. And then the third big category was around like essentially it was a selfish one, which was me, of like, this is really important to me, like building a company, always like pushing for stuff. I'm never going to be the white picket fence guy. I'm never going to be the 9-to-5 guy. I'm never going to be the big vacation guy. And that has some major benefits, and that has some major trade-offs. And so we explored a lot of those over like our first 6 months, but within our first 6 months, we knew like this was it. And so, we've been together about 9 years now. And so, but the bigger thing that you were getting at, we do offsites twice a year. I know that sounds crazy. We have an agenda, but it's like we go on vacation and we have an agenda that we talk through at dinners and lunches and stuff as we go forward. And sometimes there's a little bit of research that we got to do, while we're sitting by a pool or something like that. But one of the big things that we did early in our relationship, and then very formally, literally we got married, and then that weekend we did this, was a series of questions just around like, what do we want? And they were questions like, and I can share them if you want to post them in the show notes, but it's like, like actual physical things. Like, what stuff do you want? Emotional things. What do you never want to feel? What do you always want to feel? What is important to you? Service and experience things. What do you want to go do? What's really important to you? Stuff like when you're on your deathbed, what do you want to have done? What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to make sure, people, when they think of you, they think of X, whatever X is. And it was just a series of like introspective questions. And then the process was spend 90 minutes just writing. So we just wrote, spent 90 minutes each. And then oftentimes, you sit with it and then we come back to it a day later, spend another 90 minutes. And then what we do is we switch lists. I look at hers, she looks at mine, and we just ask questions, not in a judgmental or any way, but literally just to understand, like seek to understand on, okay, did you mean this? What did you mean by this? And then we get those notes so we both understand. And then we spend some time literally going through each other's lists together and being like, line by line, I agree with this, I support this, I also want to do it, or I don't care, but I support you, or I disagree. Like, I don't think this is good, or I don't think that's what I want our life to be. And we were together, the last time we did this, we've been together, I think it was 7 or 8 years at that point. And so it was one of those things where there were very few things where we disagreed. But imagine we were together for that long and we had major disagreements. Like, that would be insane. But that's how a lot of relationships are, because you get into loss aversion and you're like, I guess I should marry this person. Right. And I think those things are really important compared to kids or no kids, like stuff like that, because those are going to be really easy to figure out. But for example, like, I want to fly private everywhere. Well, if she disagreed with that or disagreed with what it took to get to that, it's like, that's a major difference, right? Or if she wanted, basically to have dinner every night with the kids, that's not going to happen. Now, it can happen a lot, but it's not going to happen every night because there's going to be travel, there's going to be stuff going on, etc. But it's just a lot of really important stuff. And then what's really important is the action that comes from that, because we then kind of align our life, and then we start to figure out, well, this year we're going to start doing this because we both agreed that that's really important to us. Or for her, time is a really important thing. So what we've started doing is we align our schedules as close as humanly possible. We wake up at the same time, we go work out, we end up walking the dog for 20 minutes. And then the rest of the day, like, there's no expectation that we're together. And then at 6 p.m. every single night, I'm done. And between 6 and 8 is hers, and family time. And I basically started doing that because when we have kids, I just wanted to be in that rhythm. And then all of a sudden at 8 p.m., we start our evening routine and go to bed. So I'm literally beginning and ending the day. And that, I didn't have to give up much to do that. And she had to give up a little because she had to wake up earlier because I wake up early. But like, she's getting so much. She's getting so much of the thing that's really important to her, which is that time and that connection, which, I'm more than happy to give. And so, yeah, it's all just about alignment, and you can't align it if you don't know what you want. And so many people just have no freaking idea what they actually want.
How many questions is this?
It's like 6 to 8 questions, but it's not, again, like, the purpose isn't getting exact questions. The purpose is having a prompt to have these conversations, right? Like, some stuff came out of this where, like, Jenny wants, like, and you'll be surprised too. So, like, Jenny wants to go hunting. I like hunting. Like, I love hunting. I never knew that, right? Because we never really talked about it. I haven't been able to hunt in a long time because, work and all this other stuff. Now all of a sudden it's like, cool, we're going to go do an elk hunt next year, right?
That's cool.
Like, it's just a lot of stuff like that came out of it that's both surprising. And also there's other things like, she really wants to visit her family. Okay, well, in the clarification, it's like, well, how much? Do you want to live next to them? Do you want to see them twice a year? Does it matter that we go there? Can they come here? And those are amazing questions to have, because I don't want 3 years of resentment building up because we didn't see her mom enough. And I didn't even know. And then she's like, yeah, we don't see our mom enough, and I'm really frustrated. And now I'm starting to have a conversation from like a very negative place because I can't make up for time that's already passed, right? And so that's what was really, really powerful, is because we could design our life. And then the other things that come out of these offsites are the shared budget, which we talked about a little bit. That budget's really important. Like, thankfully, neither of us are like hardcore spenders or anything. But like, all of a sudden it was allowing us to be like, no, we should be looser. Like, objectively, we should be looser with certain things. We should totally spend the money to do that, that thing or this other thing. And then like our shared calendar, basically, like a shared schedule of like, what trips are we going to take this year and stuff like that. But it's just all about alignment, because alignment limits resentment.
I love it. And in fact, I mean, 6 to 8 questions. It sounds like you guys are being very intentional about it. It's almost like the Amazon narrative, where it's like a 6 page narrative. So it could be 3 to 6
Yeah,
pages or whatever.
like she wrote a lot more like paragraphs and sentences. I wrote a lot of bullets, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, and like what came from that is, a shared doc, and it's all in Notion. We have a family Notion that's
Yeah.
basically like, hey, this is what's important to us. And but prior to this, we have shared values as a family. We have a mission as a family. We're gonna like create a family crest. We're gonna do some branding around it. And this is just more around like it's important to us. Like we are a unit, and if you're a unit, you should be really, really like successful as a unit.